Good day, gentlemen and ladies. It is February 15th, Wednesday, 2023, day after Valentine's Day. Mike's looking spiffy. I'm here with Mike Konnert, CEO of Vizsla Silver. Obviously, subscribers are very well aware of this deal, but I'll probably send this out to a few other people who might not be as aware of it. Vizsla has a very large, very high grade silver gold resource in Mexico. That resource is destined to get quite a bit larger. I can't remember what the cutoff was for that, but I'll get Mike to tell us that. But there's already a lot of holes past that resource, and that was over 200 million ounces at very good grades. I would say the star of the show, everybody that follows the company knows it, is Copala. Yesterday morning, Vizsla put out some more Copala results, and I wanted to get a chance to talk to Mike before I sent an update out. But more good widths, great grades, more of the same. But I'm going to get Mike to talk to us a little bit about something they alluded to in the release, which is a potentially uplifted block. From what I know of this stuff, there's presumably a couple of market horizons in the stratigraphy. You find those on both sides of the structure, and that usually allows you to figure out which side is up thrust or down thrown, and if you're lucky, by how much. And that, in theory, at least, should allow you to, if you have a mineralized structure, and this is the case of Copala, because I believe certainly Cristiano, maybe on the other side as well, it's cut off by a structure, or so presumably there's more of it. You just have to figure out where to drill on the other side of that structure to find it. So I think that's actually pretty exciting news. I think it's as exciting, maybe more exciting, really, than the results so far, because obviously Copala is where you really add the ounces. And so, Mike Konnert, can you kind of give us maybe some recent highlights and maybe walk us through yesterday's news? But again, it's important to everybody to understand Copala is a very unusually good structure. It's an unusually good resource area. You really add a lot of ounces with every drill hole here. It's quite impressive how big it was in the last resource update.
Yeah, it's Copala has obviously quickly become the star of the show, as you mentioned earlier, with within our property, and the western area of the Panuco district, which features Copala and Napoleon and our other veins, is really that center of mass that we're seeing come together very nicely. So that's the likely place to begin development of the project as well. And it all really boils down to the structure that we're seeing at Copala, and why it's so abnormal and different from not necessarily other things that we've seen in our district, because we have seen signatures similar to that in other areas like La Colorada, and there's an area off the map as well that's similar in a way to Copala that's been mined out historically. But for us to have found Copala in a blind discovery, and then for it to be 10 meters thick on average, which is 5 times the average thickness of underground mines in Mexico, and at a grade that's 3 times the average grade, it's really spectacular. And of course, the news we put out yesterday just shows that Copala continues to grow along strike. So now it's over 1 kilometer in strike. And, the holes that we're growing it with are, very good in grade and consistent to what we're seeing in terms of grade and thickness of Copala. And, I'm happy to maybe share the release here just to point that out. Some of these holes, of course, the highlight hole, almost 900 grams per ton silver equivalent over 6 meters true width here. And on 220, the second highlight hole, we've had some very high grades here, 7.5 kilos over about half a meter, but really nice grade throughout. And as I mentioned, it's continuing to grow to the south here. We will drill to the north at Copala in the future as well, but we're stepping out along Copala and growing this this resource area, which I think will bode well for the update that we're planning for the second half of this year. But one of the things that excites me the most about Copala, outside of the fact that it's just growing incrementally and showing that it's consistent with grade as well throughout is, the potential target of the uplifted block to the east. And, where it's early days for us. Of course, we don't have any confirmation of this through drilling yet, but the interpretation that we're seeing here of what a potential uplifted block looks like is quite encouraging. So we are planning holes that would be further to the east that would step back and target some of these areas.
And I guess there's nothing, I mean, nothing really jumps out at me, but I guess there's nothing obvious you could do geophysically that narrows this down for you. I mean, at this point, it's just a matter of whack some holes into it and see if
Yeah.
where it goes.
And of course, we're comfortable with doing that, and ideally the target area would be relatively close to surface, so it's not like we're drilling kilometer holes, testing a porphyry or something like that. It's it should be relatively cost effective to test these potential targets. But we have gone back to the EM data that we did around Tajitos and Napoleon and various other areas. And we know that it does correlate and does show, the sulfides, at least in Josephine, which is to the west of Napoleon. But we are going back and reviewing that data and trying to understand, are there any of these discrete signatures that we maybe didn't notice, or, that are perhaps unique to structures like Copala. So we are going back to some of the historic EM data, geophysical data, and seeing if that can give us potential for a key to unlocking further value with other exploration targets in the area. Again, one of the more frustrating things, although it's certainly not a showstopper for us, because we've been more than successful with drilling and classic styles of prospecting, is that we haven't been able to contract a group to do the type of geophysics that we want airborne in the area. So we are, we're considering doing more ground EM over select areas, but that would come after understanding if there's, signatures or data in the EM data that we've undertaken already.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my next question, is whether, I mean, I know obviously property wide ground EM really isn't practical. It's a very big property and you got a lot of topography in places, but you think it might be worth going back and maybe doing some more loops, because it did seem to work when you did it in Napoleon. I mean, Josephine, I believe largely was a result of those EM loops and going like, oh look, there's something over there. So you think you might be doing some more of those? Well, well, you wait for some geophysical company to set up a Mexican subsidiary.
Exactly. I think that's something, well, it's certainly something that we're reviewing. I can't say, I can't give a date that, it's done by, but, we, with the success that we're having with kind of, your traditional style of, prospecting and drilling, of course, at Copala, it's not necessary yet to do this to find new targets, but it's something that we want to use to vector into new mineralization.
Right. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Vizsla, which by the way is VZLA on the venture, it's also VZLA on the Amex. You still got a very, very active drill program going. Can you just kind of summarize what, how many rigs you get going and where they are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share this presentation here just to show, give an orientation of where we are. And, we're focused in the west here, in this general area. Our Copala discovery, which has been, probably one of the more important precious metals discoveries, certainly in Mexico for many, many years, is focused in the west. And then our Napoleon is to the west of Copala. And this is really that center of mass. And, if we were to drop a pin here in between Napoleon and Copala and draw a 3-kilometer radius, we'd see that, pretty much 90% of our resources are centered in that area. So that's our main focus. But in a lot of ways, we have, 3 distinct projects almost here on the property. And I think as we move forward and, focus on developing the West and putting that into a mine plan and moving that forward into preliminary economic assessments and the like. We'll see that the center area here, which is, maybe it's about 5 kilometers away from our center of mass to the center border here, all of course on the same contiguous mine concession map. Of course, it's not a different project, but this is an earlier stage than the West. We've made a number of discoveries here at San Antonio and Animas, and we're continuing to drill in these areas with one rig right now. But the 6 rigs that we have on the property are focused on the West here. So the majority is at Copala. We have 2 here in the Josephine and Napoleon area, including La Luisa. And then we have another rig that's testing some other potential discoveries in that area as well. But we do have a rig that's working on the Animas, the northern end of Animas. And we've made some exciting discoveries there as well. And we think that there is the potential for perhaps some of that flatline structure at the northern end of Animas as well. So that's a focus for us. But there's 2 distinct corridors that run through here. There's Cordon de Loro, which hosts San Antonio, and about a 7 kilometer long structure here. And then there's the Anima structure, which is the center of historic mining. And when we first came to this project and consolidated it initially back in 2019, Animus was actually our focus, and kind of shows you how quickly things can change and new discoveries can be made, because we really made a virgin discovery out in the West, and that's what brought our attention over to the West. But Animus, I believe, has a significant amount of potential for new discoveries as well. And then our least developed area, the area that's it's not greenfields, but to us it's more of that nature, is in the east here. And we have a commanding land package here with many veins running through it. But this is probably where some of the other kind of earlier discoveries could come from as well. But I think if a company just had the small area that we have here in the West, they would be busy for many years to come. Of course, we're systematically exploring and mapping the whole district as we speak, and really only about 30% of our targets have been tested across the district.
Now, if you're going to look for, and I'm sure you are, another Capella, was it Animus? I think there were a couple of the mined out areas sort of in central where there were some zones that had, they're mined out, so I don't know if they're literally the same as Capella, but they were similar in the sense that I believe there were some relatively thick and also relatively flat line zones. I mean, are you thinking that's something that's kind of genetically similar? I mean, they're mined out, but is there any sense there might be something around them that the old timers didn't get to?
Yeah, almost certainly, I think there is there. There's 7 main ore structure or ore shoots, I should say, along the Anima structure, and the one that you might be referring to is the Mariposa structure, and that was one that we talked about a lot in the early days, and it was about at least a 10-meter thick structure that we knew had actually very similar grades to Copala. Now that I think about it, a kilo over 10 meters, that type of historic grade was recorded there. But we do know that there's other flatline structures in that center area that have been mined out historically. But I think probably the most proximate and most valuable areas to look for flatline structures is probably in the West. And there's some mines like old mines like Colorado and others in that area that I think offer the potential for more preserved flatline structure. But I think I would be surprised if there wasn't another somewhat hidden or a discrete Copala somewhere around Copala itself. I think there's something to do with the rocks there and potential heat sources that's causing Copala to be there, and I don't think that's the only example of that.
Okay, so what do we got to look forward to news flow wise in the next little while here from Vizsla?
Well, our major, I might have a slide for this actually. Well, this is actually a good way to look at what's we've targeted as well. So we have, new news coming out of Copala and Cristiano going forward as well with further drilling.
Right.
We've been drilling La Luisa as well, so we'd be seeing some news out of La Luisa. And then there's the potential for kind of these new discoveries in this western area as well. But our main focus here is to deliver an updated project resource in the second half of 2023.
Yeah.
And then following that, I believe we'll see initial economics from the project, so a PEA. Now, likely the earliest that you would see that would be in early 2024. It's not something that we're going to rush out at the end of the year, I don't believe, but we are moving the project forward to preliminary economics, but we'd like to see the project hit a certain threshold with regards to total resources before then.
Okay. I mean, I think that covers it. I mean, more great results. Capella really is well, it's hopefully not, I was going to say one-off. It's hopefully not one-off, but it's a pretty unique, resource. I mean, anybody that understands the mining business can look at that, can look at that, shape in terms of grade, thickness, and stuff, and it's something that's going to have ridiculous margins. I mean, it just is. It's a great discovery. Silver price hasn't been doing any of us a lot of good lately. We're not getting much love from silver, but again, companies that can grow resources and add ounces the way that Vizsla has, and that are fully funded to drill the hell out of this thing for the rest of the year. They can create their own momentum at times, and I suspect that's what we see with Vizsla. Obviously, if the silver bugs are finally right and we get a big run in silver, well, that's just going to be the cherry on top, and there'll simply be that much more momentum. But this is a story that I think is going to do well on its own merits, even if we don't see a big push in the silver price short term. And if we do, it's going to be even better. So I think it's a great story. Vizsla Silver, V's at LA on the venture, and V's at LA NYSE Amex. Mike Konnert, CEO, great update as usual. Thanks for coming along, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more good news soon.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it, and good to see you today.